Hey, jump scare Kirby! Do you know what time it is, jump scare Kirby? Why, you're right! It's time for Silent Hill! Are you okay? I think jump scare Kirby's having a seizure. You've ruined the intro of this video. You've ruined it. Good job. Oh god. Oh god. Kirby? Kirby, what's happening? Oh god. What a terrible dream. Good bloody day, everyone. And welcome back to the basement, where magical things happen. And welcome to Silent Hill month, which is like Resident Evil month. Except this time, it's Silent Hill month.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. I've told you about Resident Evil, I've told you about Fatal Frame, I've told you about Slender Man, and now I suppose it's time I tell you about my favorite horror game franchise in all time and space, Silent Hill.
Excuse me,
I'm sorry. I
No,
was
it's
just...
okay. I didn't mean to scare you.
Oh god. Okay, so it's kind of cheesy. Silent Hill is old, and it's kind of cheesy. But you don't understand. Until you understand, you're not gonna understand.
So what is it that's so great about Silent Hill? What is it that I find so special about it? Is it the gameplay? The monsters? The violence? The gore? The combat? The boss battles? Well, no. For me, it's none of those things. This ain't Resident Evil, man, come on. It's just a ripoff of Resident Evil. JK, it's way more than that. See, unlike Resident Evil, Silent Hill isn't just a game. It isn't just a game series. No, Silent Hill is a feeling. A feeling of emptiness, of fear, of deep reflection, darkness, and despair. Silent Hill is basically what happens when a video game series becomes so big, so vague, and so unusual, it's literally too hard to talk about. And no, I don't mean like Kingdom Hearts.
Zemnas, the organization superior, is the nobody of Xehanort, my foremost apprentice. The burden was mine to bear.
I can't help you with revenge.
What the fuck is going on in this game? So yeah, Silent Hill is hard to talk about, but not exactly for the reasons you'd expect. See, for a lot of people, Silent Hill is probably a pretty simple game. On the outside, it's just a game about a haunted town. It's a horror game, it's about a haunted town, and it plays kind of like Resident Evil. And that's it. And that seems pretty simple, right? But God, if you actually sit down and play the games, Silent Hill is so much more than that.
Frankly, I don't even know where to begin with all this. I don't know. What do you think about Silent Hill, Kirby? I don't even know who you are anymore.
Alright, let's just start from the beginning, shall we? Let's start from the very, very, very beginning. A long, long time ago, when horror games were stupid, and Resident Evil on the PS1 was like the scariest thing ever made, there was once a cute, innocent little company called Konami. Well, a big, cute, innocent little company called Konami. Konami was responsible for creating and owning dozens of classic, renowned video game franchises we all know and love, like Castlevania, Metal Gear, Contra, DDR, and even the original Frogger. But in the year 1996, Konami decided they weren't satisfied with all that anymore. They wanted to make something new now. They wanted to make a horror game. First, Konami set up a development team called Team Silent, and they asked them to make a horror game that would be quote-unquote Hollywood-like. They wanted a game that would sell out, that would appeal to large audiences in the USA and make them lots and lots of cold hard money. Luckily, however, this isn't really what ended up happening. Originally, Team Silent didn't know quite how to approach this project. They didn't have a clue what they were doing, and they didn't seem to be very interested in making the shallow Resident Evil ripoff Konami wanted them to make. As time passed, the development of this game shifted. It tossed and turned, taking longer and longer to make. And instead of making a game that would appeal to players' wallets, they decided to make a game that would appeal to players' emotions. And out of this mess came Silent Hill, one of the most important survival horror games ever made.
Okay, well, it used to be one of the most important horror games ever made. Nowadays, it's just kind of terrible and hilarious.
Tell me everything you know. What's going on?
Darkness.
Darkness? That's what's going on. Now I know.
Hold it. Where do you think you're going?
My daughter. I've got to find her.
My daughter? I've got to find it. Your voice acting is top-notch, Harry. Top-notch.
Yeah, the original Silent Hill certainly hasn't aged all that well. Back in the day, it was a cutting-edge horror game, with scary-looking monsters, beautiful mesmerizing graphics, and pretty outstanding FMV cutscenes. But nowadays... oh god, the way he looks when he runs! I can't do it.
Okay, basically what you're gonna have to do while I'm talking about this is just pretend it's 1999. Pretend it's the year 1999, and the best-looking game in the world is like Ocarina of Time. Okay? Okay.
So for those of you who don't know the story of Silent Hill 1...
Harry Mason prefers to take late vacations with his daughter Cheryl. This year, they've made plans to visit Silent Hill. That's Harry Mason. Due to car trouble, they reach the outskirts of the town late at night. And they drive to Silent Hill in the middle of the night. He sees a little girl in the road, swerves and crashes. The car slides off the edge of the road and into a gully. Harry eventually regains consciousness. Cheryl is nowhere to be seen. It is unusually cold. Snow is falling out of season. Where has Cheryl disappeared to? Game objective? Find Harry's missing daughter, Cheryl. That's what you're supposed to do in case you didn't know what you were doing. The story of Silent Hill.
So yeah, that's pretty much where the game starts you off. You play as Harry Mason, a dad searching for his lost daughter, and you seem to have just walked out from a violent car wreck, all confused, alone, and wandering the streets of Silent Hill. Right from the beginning, it's clear there's something wrong with Silent Hill. This isn't any kind of normal resort town. It's empty, it's devoid of human beings, and for some reason, it's completely covered in falling snow and thick white fog.
Cheryl? Is that Cheryl?
After spotting Cheryl, you quickly start to chase after her. This leads you running down Silent Hill's streets, around its buildings, and deep into one of its dark alleyways. And then, creeping down that alleyway, you start to witness one of the coolest opening sequences you'll ever see in a horror game. First, you hear a siren go off in the distance, an alarming noise that echoes throughout the entire town. And then, everything around you goes dark. From here, the environment changes. The town starts to turn hellish, the ground and walls becoming grim, black, rusty, and bloodstained. And then, you find the body. Oh my. Well, that doesn't seem good. Maybe it's time to just turn around and leave now. Oh my god, babies! Babies with knives! No, get off me! I'm not your mother! Ah!
Now, normally, I wouldn't be going this in depth about just a mere opening sequence. But the thing is, everything you need to know about Silent Hill is right here, in this opening sequence.
I love this opening sequence. The presentation, the camera angles, the atmosphere, the ever-transforming nightmarish environment. This right here, this is what Silent Hill is. It's psychological horror. Trippy, dark psychological horror that twists, bends, and messes with your mind. See, before Silent Hill came around and did this kind of thing with video game form, well, there was nothing else like it. There were no psychological horror games made by big AAA developers. There were no sophisticated horror games that tried to get inside your brain and tinker with your feelings. Aside from, the select few gems that often went unnoticed. But Silent Hill was something new. This wasn't just a shallow horror game with predictable jump scares in it. This was a horror game that felt alive. Like, take a look at that opening again. See how the environment around you moves in the game? Hear how the game's music throbs and pulses? Like it's a gasping, living thing? See how the creatures look like they're a part of the game? A part of the environment? Yeah, compare that to Resident Evil. These creatures aren't just zombies walking around in a mansion. They're not just out-of-place monsters roaming around where they don't belong. No, these creatures are at home here. They're a part of Silent Hill. And as you continue playing the game, you'll see exactly what I mean. So after you get attacked by evil babies, you suddenly next wake up in a random diner, and you meet a friendly motorcycle cop named Sybil Bennett.
I'm a police officer from Brams, the next town over. The phones are all dead, and the radio too. I'm going back to call in some reinforcements.
Sybil gives you a gun before you leave, and she tells you that she'll help you keep an eye out for your daughter. But she doesn't go with you, of course, because this is a horror game. And why would you go with someone when you can split up and be alone forever? What could go wrong? So most of what you'll be doing in this game is exploring the town, searching for your daughter in big, spooky, empty locations, like abandoned schools, abandoned hospitals, churches, amusement parks, sewers, evil demonic dungeons of undeniable death. And all the while throughout the game, the town is constantly shifting back and forth, from a white, cold, foggy world to an infernal, black hell world. The gameplay follows all the usual survival horror stuff. Shooting monsters, solving puzzles, conserving your ammo, checking your map, looking for items, yada yada yada. But what makes it interesting is that, well, it's not really about any of that stuff. No, it's about atmosphere. Dark, fascinating, absorbing atmosphere. And I know I talk about that shit a lot. I mean, that's all I talked about with Resident Evil. I said I liked it for the atmosphere, for the mansion, the camera angles, and all that dooky, spooky immersiveness. But here's the thing. This is different. Resident Evil is not all about the atmosphere. That's not its strong point. That's not the reason it appealed to the masses. That's just the reason it appealed to me. Resident Evil appealed to the masses because of horror. Because of monsters, scares, shocks, jumps, and thrills. Back in the day, Resident Evil was the go-to game for that stuff. But Silent Hill wasn't. See, a typical scary scene in most normal horror games goes kinda like this. But a typical scary scene in Silent Hill goes more like this. And that's all that happens. Like, you'll never find out where that crying came from. It never builds up to a jump scare, and you never see what's behind those bathroom stalls. It's just an eerie little moment of dark atmosphere. And eerie little moments of dark atmosphere? That's the language this game speaks. See, rather than jump scares, Silent Hill emphasized surroundings. It emphasized sounds, moods, and feelings. It focused much more on the scenery than it did on the monsters. And I guess that's the main reason I dig it so much. Don't get me wrong, the other gameplay elements I mentioned are still great. The puzzles are awesome. The monsters are awesome. And the exploration is awesome too. Silent Hill's exploration went about things in a very different way than most other horror games of its time. Like, instead of exploring, say, a cartoonishly cinematic building with very distinctive rooms, all dramatically different from one another, Silent Hill has you exploring eerily bland, realistic buildings. In the elementary school, for instance, every classroom is the same. Literally, the same size, the same shape. They're just like real classrooms. The building maps are almost shockingly dull with how long-windedly ordinary and repetitive they are. But that's what real buildings look like. And the world you're exploring is more relatably spooky because of it. Oh, and not to mention because of the graphics in general. I know earlier in the video I already shrugged off the graphics and made fun of how badly the game's aged, but I really do mean it when I say it. This game was beautiful for its time. Especially the lighting effects. You didn't see lighting effects like this in games back then. Like, Tomb Raider was the only thing that compared to the 3D environment and the sophisticated way it was lit. And, well, we all know what Tomb Raider looked like. I don't even think Silent Hill could have been Silent Hill without the lighting. Without the dynamic rooms and the 3D models. Unlike Resident Evil, almost nothing was pre-rendered in this game. It was all moving. It was all 3D. And as much as I love pre-rendered Resident Evil backgrounds, probably even more than 3D stuff, I think Silent Hill needed to be 3D in order to keep the mind-bending gameplay intact. I mean, even the puzzles play on weird, deranged psychological horror. Like in one of the puzzles, for example, you find a bunch of weird wiggling tentacles sticking out of the wall. And in order to get the tentacles out of your way, you have to find, like, a blood pack in the hospital. And then you have to, like, pour the blood pack out in front of the tentacles. And then the tentacles will be happy with you. See what I mean? It's just fucking weird. Playing Silent Hill is like getting high on a very specific drug. A drug that doesn't feel like any other drug. Also, the soundtrack is fucking amazing. The soundtrack, composed by ambient mastermind Akira Yamaoka, is often considered one of the most important defining elements in the Silent Hill series, and frankly, I can't imagine any of the games without it. The soundtrack ebbs and flows. Every song feels like an atmospheric masterpiece, with intricate layers of grim, ghostly hums, hard pounding industrial grinds, and of course the soft, calm ambient drones that ease the tension and balance everything out. The music has a sense of contrast. It keeps the player bouncing back and forth between feeling comfortable and feeling uncomfortable. And the same can be said for the whole game. It seems like it's always one extreme or another. You're either safe and sound, huddled up with another person in a place of warmth, relief, and refuge, or you're lost in the dark and being viciously attacked by a centipede creature.
Now I know it just sounds like I'm batshit clocked up, head over heels in love with this game, but don't worry. There are things I don't like about it, too.
Like the story, for instance.
Why are you doing this?
It's been a long 7 years.
Okay, so how do I explain what it is I don't like about Silent Hill 1's story?
But the power we could draw now will be very weak. Almost nothing. Unless we get the other half of the soul.
We'll use a magical spell.
It's gonna be hard, because everybody likes Silent Hill 1's story. Well, first, why don't we take a look at some of the best horror stories we know? The devil possesses a little girl. A scientist turns himself into a fly. A woman checks into a hotel run by a psychopath. A group of astronauts are trapped on a ship with an alien. Okay, now, let's take a look at Silent Hill's story. There was once a little girl named Alessa Gillespie.
Mommy?
And Alessa Gillespie was born with magical powers many years ago in the town of Silent Hill.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Now you know your daughter Cheryl, the little girl you're looking for? Well, she's not actually your daughter Cheryl at all, but is instead a manifestation of one half of Alessa's soul. Alessa split her soul in half many years ago because of an evil cult who wanted to use her powers to give birth to a dark demonic god named Samael. Apparently this cult sacrificed Alessa in a ritual of some kind where she was burned alive. Although fans of the game say she wasn't sacrificed at all, but instead got burned in a boiler explosion caused by her powers. They're very touchy about this, Silent Hill fans, so make sure you say it right. Alessa wasn't sacrificed, she was burned in a boiler explosion. Even though the note that says she got burned in a boiler explosion was removed from the American version of the game. It wasn't even in my game that I grew up with. Thank you for expecting me to know about this. Sorry, should I keep going on? So basically, at the end of the game, you come across this lady named Dahlia Gillespie, Alessa's evil mother. After seeing her many times, you confront her at the end where you find Alessa imprisoned, fueling this hellish nightmare with her inner suffering, darkness, and memories. And it's then that you have to fight the godlike demon summoned from inside her, Samael. And that's basically it. There are 6 different endings to the game, but only one ending is canonical. In the canonical ending, Alessa is rebirthed once again. In the final moments, we see her giving a newborn baby to Harry, who runs away holding it in his arms as he and Sybil escape from Silent Hill. The end. Hey, stop doing me, I'm your friend, goddammit! The sad thing is, I'm a pretty big Silent Hill fan. I really love this game, but I've never really loved its story. Personally, I've always felt the story would be stronger if it just didn't explain itself, if it kept things psychological and didn't feel the need to construe everything in front of me. Not only is it needlessly complicated to the nth degree, but if the explanation lying at the bottom of all these crazy, unique, awesome psychological events is just going to be magic, then I'd rather it not be broken down at all. I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of people really love Silent Hill 1's story, and it's totally fine if you do. In a lot of ways, my disliking for it is totally subjective. See, I don't really like evil cult stories. Subjectively, I just don't find evil cult stories very scary. A lot of games in the survival horror genre have evil cults in them, even to this day. And honestly, I've just grown to find it uninteresting and dull. Even before Silent Hill came out, most horror games involved evil cults. It's Lovecraftian storytelling, and that's cool. But it's not my favorite aspect of Lovecraftian storytelling. In fact, it's probably my least favorite aspect. And this is coming from a Lovecraft fan too. And Silent Hill is just so original. It's a shame that the story isn't more original, or at least more mysterious and unfathomable, like the nature of the game.
And in the end, I guess the game had to have some kind of a story, because if it didn't, they couldn't have made a movie.
Oh yes, of course, the movie! The movie. How could I forget? Yes, in 2006, just like Resident Evil a few years prior, Silent Hill got adapted into its very own major Hollywood big-budget horror film, starring Rhoda Mitchell, Sean Bean, Pyramid Head, and a very annoying little girl named Sharon.
Okay, first of all, don't say Silent Hill like that. It makes me uncomfortable. Second of all, why is your name Sharon?
Sharon! 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 That's not my name. That's not my name. That's not my name.
By the way, I'm totally kidding. The Silent Hill movie is awesome.
Well, at least, it's a little awesome. Somewhat awesome. Half awesome, I'd say. The movie itself, in all honesty, isn't really that great of a movie as a movie. I mean, the story isn't that great, the scares aren't that scary, and the dialogue is, well, nothing special.
Now, the dream of this life must end. And so too must the dreamers within it.
But holy hell, for a movie based on a fucking video game? Silent Hill is pretty damn impressive. Video game to film adaptations are almost always total garbage, but damn, just look at this one. Look at the town. Look at the monsters. Listen to the music from the games, which they actually used in the movie. It just makes me tear up.
Sharon! Sharon!
She's there! So at the beginning of the film, we see a mother and father panicking in their underwear, searching for their daughter, who just so happens to be standing on a cliff and being weird. See what I mean? Silent Hill is a feeling, and she's feeling it. So it turns out this little girl, Sharon, has intense sleepwalking problems. And every time she sleepwalks, she thrashes around and screams the words, "Silent Hill!" Concerned about this, her mother decides the best thing to do is to get in the car and drive her to Silent Hill. 'Cause that's the best thing you could possibly do.
Honey, sometimes when you go to sleep, you go on a little walk. And sometimes you talk about a place called Silent Hill.
And I'm gonna take you there and you're gonna love it, trust me! So as it goes, the two of them get in a car crash on their way there. The mother blacks out, Sharon goes missing, and then after that, the film gives way to a beautiful, stunning, perfect recreation of the intro to the original game. This scene at the beginning, right here, in my opinion, is the best part of the entire movie. Never have I seen a moment so perfect in a video game adaptation, so flawlessly living up to its source material in splendid, spooky, unbelievably polished grace. Holy mother of fuck! Well, that was just beautiful. That thing right there, I could eat that thing. I could eat it for breakfast.
Where's the little girl, ma'am?
Please, my daughter, she's gone. I need your help.
Get out of the car.
Eventually, they also bring in Sybil Bennett in the movie, played by the same actress who did Andrea in The Walking Dead, and she gives a pretty good performance bringing the character to life.
There's a fire lookout tower on the far side of Toluca Lake. It should have a radio.
Fuck you, you stupid cop.
Also, Pyramid Head appears in this movie. Okay, Pyramid Head, a little word of advice. Stop appearing in anything that isn't Silent Hill 2! You motherfucking sellout, you didn't belong in this story, you have artistic symbolic roots and you tear them apart like they never even mattered, and god damn it, you're better than this! I loved you. Aside from all the music and the beautiful killer sets, the movie's CGI is also seriously effective. Very rarely are the monsters not believable. They always feel like they're there, and the world of Silent Hill is wonderfully immersive, awesome to spend time inside. You can tell the director of this film, Christophe Gans, was a true fan of the games who really cared about what he was doing. But at the same time, it isn't necessarily a great film. There are a lot of problems with the movie, as you'd probably expect there would be. While the film certainly has a lot of atmosphere, it has this problem where it constantly likes to cut away from the atmosphere and follow a totally unnecessary character. The dad, played by Sean Bean.
She was heading for this place, Silent Hill?
There's also a problem with the story of the movie. Remember how I said the game was at its best when it was just showing things, giving you experiences, and it wasn't trying to explain everything? Well, at least the game still left a lot up to the imagination. The movie, however, tries to explain everything. First of all, it explains where the siren is coming from. Which, fuck you, movie, I never wanted to know where that siren was coming from. Second of all, the movie explains that the townspeople of Silent Hill were all religious and Christian-like, and the reason they burned the little girl Alessa was because, blinded by their faith, they thought she was a witch.
Witch! Her child's the likeness of Alessa. We burn the child! We fight the demon!
Well, great. Now everyone's gonna think Silent Hill is some cautionary religious tale about burning witches and shit. That totally captures the spirit of the game, doesn't it?
We burn this witch! We vanquish evil!
Honestly, the problem with the movie is the same problem with the game. It tries to explain itself, and it sucks at it. The movie's at its best when it's doing what the game did best, giving us dark, horrific images, being atmospheric, and painting a world of ghostly, emotional symbolism. I mean, I'm not saying that it shouldn't have a story. I'm just saying it shouldn't have a crystal clear story.
But now is the end of days, and I am the Reaper.
You know what my favorite part of the game was? My absolute favorite part that had almost nothing to do with the story? Lisa Garland.
In one early part of the game, you meet this scared, confused hospital nurse named Lisa Garland. You find her in the dark, cowering under a table, and totally overcome with comfort and relief when she finally meets you. Throughout the entire game, you keep running into Lisa. Oftentimes you'll just wake up after being somewhere totally unrelated, and you'll find her sitting beside you.
Damn! My head.
What's wrong? Harry? Harry, let me help you.
Over the course of the game, you develop a relationship with Lisa. You start to care about her somewhat, and at the very end of the game, you suddenly run into her one last time.
I'm so scared. Help me. Save me from them. Please. Harry?
As Lisa walks towards you, you get confused and push her away, and this leads to a short, quiet cutscene with absolutely no dialogue. This is my favorite moment in the entire game. Just this little scene where Lisa walks towards you, crying and bleeding from the head. I could talk about the lore of the game here, about how Lisa is supposed to have been Alessa Gillespie's nurse, how she's technically dead, and how this little bit here is likely her preparing to try and grab Harry down and drag him into the underworld. But honestly, I'd rather let confusion and subtlety carry the scene. This scene makes me tear up every time I watch it, and it's moments like this that made me fall in love with Silent Hill. This is a game that tries to evoke emotions. It tries to evoke fear, sadness, comfort, and joy. And that's what I admire most about it. I think emotions might just be the most important thing about video games, movies, books, and art. And Silent Hill, whether it be a movie or a game, I think it's best when it's doing just that.
But of course, there are more Silent Hill games. Better Silent Hill games. Did I just say that out loud? To be continued.